Welcome to the theater. Take a seat, grab some popcorn, and get ready for another horror movie double bill. This is Friday Night Fratricide.
Good evening, one and all. It's Friday night, and you know what that means. It's time for another double bill, another double dose of Fratricide. I'm still trying to work out how we tie in the title to like the intro.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's pretty good.
I was thinking like, it's Friday Night Fratricide, like, you know how all the announcers do
like,
it.
what was it, Crackerjack?
Crackerjack.
The what, you know, that the show that was on Friday nights like 30 years before either of us were born.
I thought he was one of the horses that ran in the Grand National.
Might have been.
We hope you are doing well and ready for another episode of some spooktacular discussions.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh. I am Fraser.
And I am Ewan.
Which I think we forgot to do at the start of last episode.
We introduced ourselves at the end of the last episode, which is not when you're supposed to do it.
No, we do it at the start this time.
We did it at the start.
We had a great little discussion on haunted asylums last week. This week, our theme is family. I think you had initially proposed that we do parents as a theme, and I was struggling to find one. A film that I that I enjoyed and fit into that category, so we broadened it a little bit for my benefit. And so you chose Don't Look Now.
I did choose Don't Look Now.
Which is a film that I'd not seen before.
I hadn't seen it before either.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was really, really excited to watch it. It's part of the reason I was excited about this theme is because this is like the first film that came to mind for that, and I was like, I really want to watch it. Everyone talks about how great it is, and I had never seen it. It's been on my list for ages.
Yeah.
So,
it was an experience. I think especially because if you're in any way sideways interested in horror at all, you probably know the twist ending of Don't Look Now.
Yeah.
It's very infamous, and I think that kind of takes away the magic of the film a little bit. I think it was probably a lot more shocking at its time.
Yeah, I think watching it without knowing how it ends, you're probably going to be a little bit more, not necessarily more invested. I still found that I was really invested in the film.
Okay. But
I think I can see why some people would be taken out of it a little bit if they know what's going on.
Yeah.
So,
yes, we have Don't Look Now up first this evening, followed by the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original Cannibal Family, the family from hell, the gruesome family.
Yep.
I got nothing else.
No,
I got Family from Hell, and that's about the extent of what I can do with that. I think I maybe stretched the theme of family.
Well, they are family.
Maybe a little bit. I pushed it a little bit sideways, I think.
Maybe
for this week. Definitely, stretching the theme. But that's fine. It's a film that I'd not seen for a long time. I think I've seen it a couple of times before, but not in the last 5-6 years or so. Definitely,
it'd been a couple of years since I'd seen it.
I was pleasantly surprised, to be honest. I'm excited to talk about it.
I'm very excited to talk about it then.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
interesting. Okay,
we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. I think we'll end the evening with that. That's the R-rated film. That's the more mature. So we'll start off with one that's a little bit more tame, and I'll let you take it away with Don't Look Now.
Yeah, Don't Look Now. Very interesting film, and to be honest, not too much of a horror film, I think, in a lot of ways.
Definitely has like you say, thriller aspect.
I think it's definitely the twist ending, or like just the ending in general. The last kind of 10 minutes is really where it gets horror-y.
Yeah.
Most of the way through, it's just a kind of thriller drama, but very interesting, very enjoyable, and a very pretty film as well.
It is very good. Yeah. It's set in Venice. Which, I mean, you got a setting like that, it's going to be gorgeous.
Yeah.
So Yeah, do you want to take us to the plot?
Yeah, go
Do you
through the
want me
plot.
to? Yeah.
So we're introduced to the two main characters, who are Donald Sutherland and Julie Christie.
Mm-hmm.
They're living in England somewhere, and Donald Sutherland is an art restorer. He's working with churches and stained glass windows, and that's what he does for his job. And it's a kind of rainy, grey English day, and his kids are outside playing, and his daughter, Christine, falls into a lake or a small reservoir or a
little
pond or whatever it is, and drowns. And of course, that's what kicks off this whole thing, is that it's about grief. It's about a couple living with the grief of their daughter having died at about 5 or 6 years old, which is
fun.
not a fun way to kick off a film, but yeah, and
it's quite a heartbreaking sequence.
It
that
is.
opening segment,
Yeah.
like it's really, because it's, if you didn't know it was coming,
Mhm.
it's very much like it's played off that something's about to happen, but
Yeah.
you don't know what.
Mhm.
And then Donald Sutherland like running outside, he spills.
He spills water on
Yeah.
he's got a slide, an old like photo slide of a stained glass window somewhere in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
It's presumably also in Venice, and spills a glass of water on it, and the water runs through someone's red jacket in the foreground of the picture, and it's stained with this red ink that looks like blood. And I really love that shot. I really like it.
Yeah.
And the and then so then they go to Venice, and they spend pretty much the entire rest of the film kind of kicking about Venice, being sad about the fact that their daughter's dead. It's more complicated than that, obviously, but that's pretty much that's pretty much the core of the film, is that they're sad about it. The first scene that we really get when they're in Venice, they're going out for lunch,
Mm-hmm.
and they meet a pair of sisters who are older, and one of them, who is blind, is also psychic. She talks about how she can tell, she knows about their daughter and what happened to the daughter.
Purportedly psychic. Yes.
She insists that she knows what was going on with the daughter and what happened, and she's happy. She's like, I could see her between the two of you, and yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have our opinions on psychics and whether or not they're just taking advantage of people who are grieving. But it being a horror film, you kind of assume that
you sort of believe
maybe
it.
she's telling the truth. Maybe she's not.
Yeah,
she doesn't seem to be actively doing anything horrible. I guess she's just giving her false hope.
I find them very mysterious when you're first introduced to them. They're sitting at another table, and she. The not blind sister, I can't remember their names.
I can even
the non-blind sister
down.
gets something in her eye,
Mm-hmm.
and she sort of stumbles over, or she bumps into John as she's walking past the table, and then Laura goes to help her in the bathroom to get whatever it is out of her eye, and she's very much like, "Oh, thank you, dear, thank you. It's all very. You're so kind. You're so nice. I'm such a frail old woman."
Yeah.
And then as soon as she gets the thing out of her eye, and the blind sister sort of tells her about her visions, her face like shifts, and she's very like sincere and almost like evil.
Yeah.
She's very like, yes, she has the gift, you know.
She has the gift. She's like staring off into the middle distance, and she's like, I can see your dead daughter. And it's like, okay, wow.
It's kind of sinister.
This is where we're going with this. And then John's just sat at the lunch table, just eating his linguine or whatever.
And then Laura just just launches it across the room.
Just falls over onto
bails
it,
over the table.
smashes it. And this is where we kind of start to get a running theme. And this is something I'm very proud that I picked up on it before I did my research on the internet.
Uh-huh.
There's a kind of a running theme around like broken glass, for one thing, throughout the film, and also water. Obviously, you've got, the drowning at the beginning, and then they're in Venice, there's all the water everywhere. And we start getting glimpses as they're going around the city. We start hearing about how there's a serial killer.
Yeah.
Which at first seems like it's totally tangential to the plot. It's not related at all. It's just kind of going on in the background. But we keep seeing these shots. John will be going out, walking along the canals, and we'll see an area that's been closed off by the police, and there's a police boat pulling a body out of the water. And we get several shots like this, and obviously that's then calling back to the beginning of the film with John pulling his daughter out of the water after she's drowned. And it's, interesting. and strange. Like they keep going back to it, but it's not even in like a kind of traumatic way. It's not intending to scare the audience. It's just it keeps happening over and over.
Yeah, they bump into it, keep bumping into them, and John like has a sort of flashbacks, and side by side he sees the woman getting dragged out of the water dead, and then he flashes back to his daughter, and he sort of reminds him of everything.
Yeah.
It's not. I don't know. It you say it's not really tangential to the plot, but I very much felt that it was.
Well, yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, obviously it's leading somewhere. Later on, they get to the point where they hear about their son who's at boarding school back in England. Has had an accident of some sort. Laura, the wife, Julie Christie's character, flies back to England, and then John, while he's out and about in Venice, sees the two sisters with Laura on a boat.
Yeah.
And becomes convinced that they're doing something, they're manipulating her, she's actually in Venice, she never left, and he's trying to track her down. He goes to the police, and then somewhere there around that, he's being suspicious, and the police start to follow him and think that maybe he's involved with the killings.
Yeah.
I don't know if they really have any reason to, other than he's English and he's got a mustache. But yeah, it's very interesting. And then of course we're left wondering, like, what is this? Like, he's had a vision of his wife with these two sisters. Like, it's very clearly them. But
they're on a funeral boat. They're on a funeral boat. It's not. I don't know what the equivalent of a hearse is on the water.
A water hearse. A sea hearse.
Wasn't that a book?
the water horse.
The water hearse.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's. I didn't notice it at first. I thought it was like the first scene. I'll admit that I fell asleep halfway through the film, and it was about that point that I fell asleep. So when I woke up, I watched from that point again. So I kind of forgot what was all was going on. And was and I didn't realize that it was actually Laura on the boat with the two sisters. I thought he was just sort of tripping, and thought he was just seeing a woman who he assumed was Laura. So that threw me off a little bit. I thought he was kind of going a bit mad, but he did actually see them. He did have a vision of the three of them on this water hearse, going through the city.
Because it's been suggested by this point, because Laura's been spending time with the sisters. Yeah, there's a whole thing about John supposedly has the gift, but doesn't realize it. He's also got visions, but he's kind of not letting himself see them, so they're not as vivid, I guess. But that's why at the beginning of the film he just drops everything and runs out when Christine starts to drown.
Yeah, he knows.
She doesn't scream or anything. He just suddenly gets up and runs outside.
Yeah, he knows something's wrong.
So there's that whole thing that it's like is he maybe seeing the future, or is he seeing some kind of precognitive whatever, you know? And then it pretty much leads to him trying to get in touch with the sisters to figure out what's going on, while Laura's on her way back into Venice. Then he's going about at night and he starts seeing the figure in the red coat, which he has seen a couple of times during the film.
Well, once in the background.
Yeah.
I have issues, right? I have real issues.
This is kind of the big famous thing about the film, is that, like, he keeps seeing his dead daughter in the red coat running around. Yeah. But like, it happens once.
That's what really got me. Because obviously at the start of the film, Christine is in a red coat. She's in a red rain jacket, and that's how she dies, in the coat. So there is that kind of theme of the red coat and standing out and blah blah blah, whatever. And there's one scene, or at least I counted one scene throughout the entire time that they're in Venice, where you see someone in a red coat in frame, and he doesn't see her. Like, he doesn't see them at all. Yeah, they're just running off over a bridge in the background. And I don't know if I'm wrong and I've missed something. Yeah, but that's the only time I spotted it.
It's definitely not as big of a motif in the film as you're led to believe. I mean, this is my first time hearing about the film is from Spaced, the sitcom with Simon Pegg. There's a joke where they go out. It's obviously very just referential to all different types of movies, and it's got a bunch of jokes about horror movies in it. And there's a scene when he's out at the park at night looking for it because his dog's gone missing. And as he's walking past, a figure in a red coat runs between the trees, and he kind of stops and looks around. And they were like, yeah, it's a reference to Don't Look Now. And that was my first time hearing about the film. So I thought that's what the whole film was.
Yeah.
Like, he keeps seeing the figure in the red coat all the time, and it's freaking him out. But like, yeah, it happens once and he barely sees it. So I don't really know what's going on there.
We'll finish off what happens.
Happens, yeah.
Like that. So that is the end, that more or less.
Pretty much. Yeah. While in Venice him and his wife, I guess, keep missing each other.
Yeah.
He sees the figure in the red coat and tries to chase her down to figure out what's happening. Is it his daughter who's actually alive? Is it someone else who has some kind of psychic connection to them or whatever? And then chases her down into an abandoned building, and then it turns out that it's a little old woman with a meat cleaver.
It's just a creepy old woman.
It's just
a creepy old woman.
And she gets him in the neck with the meat cleaver.
Yep.
And then he dies. And then the end of the film is the realization that the boat that he saw earlier with his wife and the two sisters was actually his own funeral procession.
He was in the water hearse.
Yeah, he was. He was in the sea hearse. And yeah.
You sound like a southern like Texan saying seahorse.
The sea hearse.
The sea hearse.
Yeah, and like that's how the film ends. And it's kind of weird because it, like, up until that last 10-minute scene, if they had ended the film differently, if they had it be like, he sees the figure in the red coat, he almost goes after her, and then he decides not to, and that's a whole metaphor for him, like, moving on from the grief,
accepting her death,
and he and his wife just go back to England, and that's the end of the film. It would have just been like a drama. Like, it's not it's not even like a horror film up until that point. So it really comes out of left field. I don't really like how the film ends.
I hated it.
I think
I'm gonna be up front with you. I think hated it.
The end is very, very weird. It totally kind of misplaced.
Yeah.
I should point out that this film was based on a book, or a short story, I think, written by Daphne du Maurier, who I would have thought wouldn't have gone for a twist ending like that, to be totally honest. So I don't really know how it compares to, like, the plot of the book. I don't know if the book's different.
I have no idea, to be honest with you.
But yeah, it's a weird ending to what I thought was a really solid film. I'll be honest, I really enjoyed it up until the last 5 minutes.
Okay.
But yeah.
You know what? Even for 1973,
73.
I think it was total garbage.
Wow. Okay.
I'm sorry to say, there was a reason I fell asleep, and that's because I was just not invested at all.
You're just super bored.
Yeah, I'm really sorry, but like, I know this is supposed to be like a classic. It's supposed to be one that is supposed to be sort of a pillar in horror films, particularly because of the ending.
Yeah.
But I just did not enjoy it at all.
That's totally understandable. I don't think it has earned its place in horror history purely because it's really not a horror film.
I mean, that ending, just as we sort of already said, like, it's not even out of left field. It's out of, like, right field from the other side. It's like, it's so far off from the plot. Of course you don't see it coming because it makes no sense. Like, presumably she's the serial killer,
I guess,
the old woman, but there's absolutely no allusion to it whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like, it could just be a random old woman in Italy who happens to have a knife in her pocket and gets scared by him. But we don't know because there's no, like, establishment of who she is.
Yeah.
Like, even they were in the police station for like a solid 10 minutes out of the plot. John goes to see them and report his wife missing and blah, 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 blah. There could easily have been like a photo on the wall with wanted for questioning, red dress woman.
Have you seen this little old woman?
Yeah, like, I know that's maybe a bit on the nose, but like, you could have had something like that, or just overheard two police officers talking in the background as John walks past. Oh, we heard that the killer wears a red coat, or someone spotted something in red, anything like that, to give some illusion that it was coming. but it makes no sense. It might have just been plucked out from another film.
Yeah.
And placed in. Like, I don't know. It really wound me up because people constantly talk about how this is one of, like, the greatest horror scenes ever. You'll never see it coming. I'm like, well, obviously I won't see it coming because it doesn't make any bloody sense.
Yeah.
So that really wound me up. That the sort of expectation of this huge payoff from this twist just did not happen and just completely let me down, flattened the total enjoyment of it, what little enjoyment I had from the film up until that point.
Yeah.
I know it's who's the director again? Italian
completely gone out
person.
of my head, yeah.
Can't remember. De Palma? No.
It wasn't De Palma.
No, not De Palma. Can't remember who it was. But the editing throughout was so jarring. It was so quick and uneven. It really, I was really struggling to focus on the film because as soon as I had like got a scene, as soon as the time it took for me to watch and process what was happening in the scene, he'd already jumped like 2 or 3 more times to something else. And I was really struggling to keep up with it. Too much Bear Sutherland ass cheeks.
A lot of Bear Sutherland ass cheeks.
A lot of ass cheeks.
There's a lot of, and some weirdly specific sex acts between Donald Sutherland and Julie Christie in this maybe 5-minute long sex scene.
It's pretty explicit as well.
Totally unnecessary. I don't want to be one of these prudes that's just like, cut out unnecessary sex scenes. But like, this is something else. It's like, it's so long. I had to fast forward through it because I was like, I get, because it keeps cutting. It's like they're getting ready for their night out. They're going out for dinner. And it keeps cutting between them having sex and them getting dressed after having sex.
Yeah.
And it keeps cutting back and forth. And it's just like one of the things that the film does quite a lot of is like it sort of plays around with like the flow of time, I guess, like because you're having like visions of the future and all of these like memories from the past, everything sort of blurs together. And this is the scene where they keep cutting, even over the course of like, I guess, half an hour, they keep cutting back and forward. But it's like, it kept cutting to like Donald Sutherland fully dressed walking out his front door. And I'm like, okay, cool, that's it. That's the end of the sex scene. And then it cuts back and he's got Julie Christie's foot fully in his mouth. And I'm like, okay, I'm skipping forward. I'm fast forwarding through this. This is too much. Yeah. So that was a weird thing in the middle of the film.
It was very, like, don't get me wrong. Love a tasteful sex scene. Love a bit of boobies.
We love some boobies.
Don't mind a bit of boobies in my horror films. But when it's kind of like this gratuitous, explicit sex scene for like, you're not kidding. It's a solid like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like wrap it up, guys. Come on. Like, let's get on with some plot here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot to take in. And so that was another gripe I had with the film. But overall, I don't know. It just felt like nothing really happened. Like it didn't feel like there was a lot of exploration of their grief. Like there's not really a moment where they sit down and say, we need to talk about what happened. Like, there's the scene in the bedroom where they get angry at each other. Yeah. Before,
it's like before they go to see the sisters.
Before they go and see the sisters. But it just doesn't. There's not enough of like. No. There's a lot of nothing happening, and not a lot of something happening.
Yeah. And
I want more of something. I want more like exploration of the themes that are there, but just really not very prominent. Like. Yeah, there's like you say, they're sort of playing with time. Yeah. There's scenes where it kind of cuts forward or adjacent, I guess, to what the sisters are doing. There's points where like John's in the police station, then there's just a cut to what the sisters are doing in their hotel room. They're emptying the suitcase or whatever. But it doesn't mean anything. Yeah. It's kind of just like, why is that scene there? It doesn't add anything for it. It's just a waste of actual plot. Like, I don't know. I had a lot of issues with it. Yeah. It's hard to articulate. But
fair enough.
Yeah, I don't know. Didn't vibe with it.
Didn't vibe with it.
Didn't vibe with it at all.
Oh, that's fine. I can understand why. I can absolutely understand why. Like, I enjoyed it because one of the things I was thinking of quite a lot during the film is like, okay, when are we getting to the horror? Like,
yeah,
it definitely had kind of, to be a bit pretentious about it, it had like giallo vibes. It's like very being filmed in Italy and just like the style of it. It was like, it's quite, I suppose it's quite vibrant, really, which is something that you get a lot in like the giallo films and like the serial killer running around and interacting with the police, and like it definitely had a lot of influence there, I would say. And then, but like from knowing giallo films, I was expecting more to be happening. Like I was expecting us to have a couple of murders throughout the film that were actually, you know,
relevant.
Seeing, like, we're actually seeing people get killed.
Yeah.
We're not just seeing their bodies getting fished out of the canals.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it did feel like it was taking a long time to get into the horror of it. But like I was enjoying the ride because I thought it was a really pretty film. Like I really liked the cinematography of it. I liked like how the all the shots. I liked all of the like the water motifs and the old art and stuff that they kept. Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't take it away from you if you found something to enjoy in it. That's great. I'm afraid I just
very different opinions.
Didn't really, like I liked the ending of it being him that he saw in his hearse. I thought that was a much better twist. I thought that was a really neat thing. That was a really neat bit that makes you go, "Oh my god!" Whereas the little lady in the red dress, I was kind of like, who is this?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah.
Like, I know what's happening. I know what's going to happen, but why?
Yeah.
This makes no sense. Whereas when Laura and the two sisters step onto the sea hearse at the end, I was like, okay. Yeah. That was kind of neat. I liked that. So there was elements that was kind of like, if you just focused on those a bit more and lent into the plot and the actual exploration of the themes. Yeah. I don't know. I just found it a bit lackluster overall, unfortunately.
Well, fair
afraid
enough
to say.
So what would you give it out of 5 stars?
Give it a 1.5.
A 1.5?
Yeah.
That's a very low rating.
Yeah, that was generous as well.
Wow.
If I'm being totally honest.
All right. That's fine.
Did you rank it higher?
I did rank it higher. I gave it 4 stars.
4 stars. Okay.
I really enjoyed it. I thought like, just like stylistically, I thought it was great. I really liked all the sort of psychic stuff. I really just like the concept generally. And like I thought the acting was really good. Donald Sutherland does a really good job.
The scene at the start,
the scene really
at the start, it's heartbreaking.
The grief in it. Yeah. There's not an awful lot of great performances outside of Donald Sutherland, to be honest.
Julie Christie's good at points.
She's pretty good.
Yeah.
She doesn't really get many opportunities to do anything too like grand, but she's doing a good job.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of this film called The Changeling from 1980.
I know
it's
of
kind
it,
of haunted house film. It's got George C. Scott in it as the main character.
Oh, that's with a little red ball.
With a little red ball.
Down, yeah.
And the premise is that his wife and daughter died, and now he's moved into this new house, this big old haunted house, and that's what kicks off the plot. But like, I feel like it does a much better job of exploring the grief angle. But the performances of Donald Sutherland and George C. Scott in those two films are quite similar, which I really liked. Like the way that they are kind of going about dealing with like the death of their child, and that was interesting.
Maybe that's one to add for a future episode.
I recommend it. I think it's a good film. But yeah, there you go. 4 stars and 1.5 stars.
1.5, yeah, a wee bit of a discrepancy there, but nonetheless. Well, that was Don't Look Now. Time to grab a refill of popcorn.
Yep.
Go and get some snacks from the lobby.
Yep.
And we will come back. Well, I say we'll come back. We're still
not going anywhere.
It's not like we're going anywhere.
We don't have any sponsors. So
I know, it's
not
not
an ad break.
This would be a great point to do an ad break.
It would be a great point for an ad break. But so if anyone wants to sponsor us to talk about anything, do you have anything you want to plug? We can do our own ads.
I don't have anything at the moment.
I don't have anything either.
I've got things in the works, but nothing I can announce yet.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's all good.
We've got others. We can plug Brostalgia. Go watch Brostalgia, our YouTube channel.
Yeah, go and
do that.
follow the other Happy Bros projects.
Yeah.
Okay, and we're back.
Yeah, we're back.
With our second film of the night, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, based on true events, supposedly. But definitely not.
Yeah.
Yes, the original 1974 by Tobe Hooper. Very much a horror film, whereas Don't Look Now was a bit ambiguous in places. Texas Chainsaw Massacre goes, full on, balls out horror. Mm-hmm. Arguably one of the first slasher films, if you would call it such. Definitely redefined a lot of how people viewed horror films.
I mean, this is one of the quintessential grindhouse horror films.
Oh yeah, 100%. Huge inspiration for the likes of John Carpenter. Mm-hmm. We wouldn't have had Halloween in it. Well, we probably wouldn't have had Halloween in its current form if we didn't have Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, incredibly influential film.
And in turn, John Carpenter inspires so many as well. So it really is kind of a big turning point for horror.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'd forgotten how good it is. I can see by your face you do not agree with me, but we'll go through it anyway.
Yeah, we have very different opinions about these two films.
Yeah, no, I kind of went into expecting it to be sort of as I remember it, which is very much low budget, indie, not great performances, pretty generic slasher, not much to it. But I was pleasantly surprised. Right from the introduction, right, we've got this great narration. It's John Larroquette, who I don't really know from much, but I know the name.
Yeah.
Does the narration. Apparently did it for a joint.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah. One of the bits of trivia.
Good for him.
Yeah, he was just like, I'm gonna do a badass narration over this.
I would do a narration for a joint. If anyone wants to give me weed to narrate the intro to your film.
And this great narration. It's all it's fake, but it all supposedly happened. These are the events of the 5 teenagers that went missing, blah blah blah, which sets up great. And then there's this great segment of all these photographs being taken of dead bodies, and the sound that it plays is it's so good. It is really the sound design in this movie is amazing for its time. That sound in particular is just chilling. I don't know if it is just a shutter going off. I don't know.
I thought it was an old camera flash.
Yeah.
But
it's got this really sinister tone to it.
Yeah. I have heard that a lot of the sounds throughout the film were done with equipment from slaughterhouses.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's maybe a slaughterhouse thing.
Possibly.
I assumed it was a camera thing, like an old camera flash.
It sounds like a shutter going off.
It might not be.
Or flash, yeah. It was Tobe Hooper that apparently did a lot of the composition for this himself, which I didn't appreciate. But so we kick off, start off this little sort of what do you call a vignette when it's only one half? Cold open? It's not really a cold open if it's a film. The vignette covers both ends. What covers just one end when it's just a sort of
a prologue?
Prologue, yeah, I guess a little bit of a prologue.
Yeah.
With this shot of a graveyard and these body parts, these really sinister looking, and the effects are pretty gruesome actually. Of this body parts tied up together on top of a gravestone. And then it kind of cuts away and it cuts to the 5 teenagers. The classic trope. It's all these horny teenagers going across the country in their camper van. We've got Sally, the main character, Franklin, her brother, who's in a wheelchair, which for its time, relatively progressive, having a disabled character in their film.
Yeah.
With no mention of him being disabled.
Yeah.
If you see what I mean, there's absolutely no reason for him to be in a wheelchair other than representation of him being in a wheelchair. If you see what I mean.
Yeah, I guess.
They maybe didn't think of it that way at the time.
Maybe not. But and I feel like the acting is bordering on the offensive. In my opinion, I think the way that Franklin's actor is going, the way he acts, the way he's it really feels like he's sort of playing dumb.
He's just a whiny dick.
Yeah, he is. But it's I don't know. I hate the way that he's acting, because it's
I mean,
it feels like an offensive stereotype of a disabled person.
Really?
I
didn't get that at all.
Oh, I think so.
I just got he was in a wheelchair and he was an annoying dick.
Okay.
I never once thought
they might not necessarally be related.
Is that how you see all wheelchair users? Ewan, is that what you're trying to say?
Whiny dicks.
No, I didn't. I mean, you could argue, yeah, that maybe it is kind of an offensive stereotype. I very much saw it in the positive. I saw it as he's a wheelchair user, and there's zero mention of it throughout the film. There's no pointing and laughing. There is that scene at the very start. He kind of rolls off down the hill after getting frightened by the lorry. Yeah, I don't know if that's supposed to be intentionally funny, but I was kind of like, what? Yeah. But yeah, I thought that was kind of nice. The rest of the characters, can't remember their names, don't know what they're called, doesn't really matter.
Don't have much personality.
They don't last long. One of them's into astrology.
He's into astrology.
Yeah. So they're driving through the town of oh god, I forgot the name of the town. Somewhere in Texas. Somewhere in Texas. Sweltering heat. They're all complaining, they're all moaning. They stop off at a couple of places. They stop off at the grave site to go and visit. Is it Sally's granddad?
Sally and Franklin's granddad was buried there, and they were worried that his body had been dug up along with some of the others.
So they go and visit the graveyard, stop off to get gas, and they meet the grizzly gas station attendant, and he's a bit weird and doesn't have any gas, so they can't fill up. And they meet a hitchhiker as well, and they decide to pick up the hitchhiker, despite him looking, what's the polite word for creepy and disheveled?
He's got blood on his face. He's got blood on his face, and you were like, yeah, get in the back.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, come on, man, jump in. And
hop in.
And I will tell you, right, I wrote his name down, if I can find it.
Well, the actor's name or the character's name?
I know the character's name doesn't have a name in the first film, but in the second film, he's called Nubbins.
He is called Nubbins.
He's just called Hitchhiker in the first film. But yeah, Edwin Neal, who played Hitchhiker, he gave it his all, man. You have to admit, like, he leans into that role like nobody's business. He just goes for it.
Yeah, but there's a fine line between good acting and hamming it up.
Nah, man, I thought he rode that line perfectly.
Absolute scenery-chewing bullshit.
No, I loved it.
Yeah, no,
I thought he went for it, man. I thought it was, yeah. He's fun fact, a Vietnam vet and a pretty extensive video game voiceover artist now.
There you go.
So yeah, good for him.
Good for Edwin Neal.
But yeah, I loved it. I thought he was great. I thought he was just so engrossing as this character. What is it? He cuts himself. He cuts Franklin's arm with his knife that he's got. He tries to take photos of people and then burns the photo in the car, and then is quickly chucked out. Like smears blood on the back of the car, which they see as like a sign that he's coming for them. And yeah, whatever. The hitchhiker is gone. So they keep going and they find this big old house in the middle of the Texas wilderness. And they decide that it would be a good idea to go and check the house for gas. It's never a good idea.
So is that because they talk about that it was like their uncle or was it their granddad's house? It's someone in their family owns the house and it's now derelict. And like I think Sally and Franklin talk about how they had been there when they were kids.
Was it not kind of the second house though? Because there's like when they first stop, they go to like the house. They go to a house and they're all kind of wandering around this derelict house. But obviously, the Sawyer family house isn't the same building.
Yeah, no, it's
so
like
it's like just close
out
nearby. Yeah. So they excuse me, they do eventually kind of move to the other house. And yeah, that's our first introduction. This is about 30 minutes into the film. There's been a lot of sort of setup, and apart from the hitchhiker, not a huge amount happens. I don't know. It's not. I'm kind of picking, picking hairs. What's the word? What's the term?
Nitpicking.
Nitpicking. Well, yeah. No, that wasn't the. Yes, I was nitpicking.
Splitting hairs?
Splitting hairs, yeah, but that's the wrong term. Yeah. That's what I was thinking of, but yeah, you're right. Nitpicking fits better. Yeah, not a whole lot happens in that first 30 minutes. And then for the next 10 minutes, everything happens.
Yeah.
And everyone dies.
Yeah.
So the first boy obviously gets in the first iconic kill, which is foreshadowed by Franklin, which I didn't appreciate. When he's talking in the car, he talks about how the cows are getting slaughtered and they get hit in the head with a sledgehammer and then they flail around and they have to get hit another couple of times. That's exactly what happens to man number one.
Yeah.
Whatever his name was.
Man with glasses.
When Leatherface jumps out from behind the door. And oh man, it's a great scene. It's just perfectly framed and everything. It's gorgeous. And he gets dragged away. And then his girlfriend, whoever the other female character's name is, Pam, I think her name is. Pam. Worries, goes in to have a look for him. She stumbles upon the sort of remains in one of the rooms in the houses. It's like there's bones and guff all over the floor.
There's like
whatever.
a couch made of arms.
Yeah, it's really it's really sinister looking.
Yeah.
And rightfully so, she freaks out and runs away, but does not get far. And for the second time in as many minutes, Leatherface jumps out from behind the door, grabs her, and promptly sticks her on a meat hook, which, despite having no gore, still made me flinch because the pure idea of that is just horrible. She's like screaming and stuck on this big meat. It's horrible. Yeah. I hate it. So they're dead.
Yep, they're done. That's them.
The second boy, then also gets killed. How does he die again?
I don't really remember. He also goes off by himself. He also kind of goes near the house.
He goes in. I wrote, maybe I just missed it, but yeah, he goes into the house as well and gets killed by Leatherface. Is that pretty much the same manner? He just
gets like chucked in the freezer. There's a scene when someone goes to a freezer. Is that when the girl goes into the freezer?
Yeah, he opens up the freezer, and Pam jumps out, and then she gets like stuffed back in, and then he grabs the other guy and does something to him. I'm having a total blank.
Yeah,
I cannot picture it in my head.
I don't really remember what happened to him. I remember the first two are pretty iconic, and then the third, I don't remember.
Why can I not? I can't remember. I think he just gets his head bashed in.
He just get done in.
I think he just gets done in. Yeah, I can't remember. That's really annoying. So yeah, anyway, that all happens within like 5 minutes. There's these 3 successive kills, really quite quickly. It doesn't give you a lot of breathing room. You're kind of on the edge of your seat, and then it kind of backs off a little bit, and you've got Sally and Franklin who are waiting by the car. It starts to get dark. They haven't heard from anyone. They eventually decide to go looking for them. And oh my god, this scene when they're walking down the forest path and Sally's pushing Franklin on his wheelchair, and Franklin says, "Stop, I hear something up ahead." And Leatherface jumps out and fucking chainsaws him through his chest.
Yeah.
Absolutely goes for it. I got such a fright. Oh my god, I'd completely forgotten that happened.
Yeah.
And it just took me so off guard.
Yeah.
Because there was something about the sort of, something's up ahead. And I don't know what it was. It just wasn't quick enough in my brain to like realize what he was saying. And all of a sudden Leatherface jumps out and there's this screech.
Yeah, there's this really sudden cut where it's like kind of from a low angle up at Leatherface.
Yeah.
And he's got his like manic eyes and you get a proper good look at his horrible mask.
Yeah.
And then like just the sound of the chainsaw is like really, really loud. It's like a proper good jump scare.
Yeah. Which I love when these older films give good jump scares to this day, because there's such like a trope that, you know, old films aren't scary anymore.
Yeah.
You don't get jump scares from old films. It was a product of their time and they were shocking to people. But seriously, like something like that is an amazing jump scare. And just I absolutely loved it. I love being scared by things that I wasn't expecting to get scared by. Like, so yeah, what ensues is a chase with Sally and Franklin, Sally and Leatherface even. he's chasing her very, very slowly through the woods, obviously for dramatic effect, because in real life he would catch her very quickly.
Yeah, apparently Gunnar Hansen wore to make himself look bigger.
Oh, he wore like
lifts,
didn't he? Yeah, lifts
in his shoes, and like even with them, that made him difficult for him to run.
Yeah.
If he ran at full speed, it took him like 2 seconds. Yeah. So he has to like, he keeps stopping to cut the branches with his chainsaw for like 5 seconds and then hobbles over again, you know?
Yeah. But that whole chase scene is so like, I don't know. I know it's obviously dramatic and you can see the added effect for it, but it was so anxiety inducing. There's something about like the noise of the chainsaw and Sally just constantly screaming and him like almost catching her and then not quite. And I was like, okay.
It is anxiety inducing for the first minute or two. I think it goes on too long.
Maybe a touch.
A lot of the scenes in this film, it's like they're really solid and then they go on just a bit too long and they become boring.
Well, there's the whole sort of they chase sort of like, it's almost like Scooby-Doo. They run into the house and they run upstairs and they run back down again, out the house.
She goes up the stairs and out the window.
Launches out the window,
and then he runs out. And
So it's very kind of, I know what you mean. It does go on a wee bit long. Eventually she gets rescued by the gas station attendant, who turns out to be Leatherface's brother.
He's the oldest brother.
So that's convenient. She gets recaptured and drawn in, and we meet the hitchhiker again, who we turn out is the younger brother. And in that scene where she gets tied up at the dinner table, and Leatherface comes and feeds her, and then there's the granddad, and she puts she gets her finger put in the granddad's mouth, and he's like sucking on her finger. Oh man,
it's very, very gross.
I don't want to see that. I don't want to see some old wrinkly man licking young fingers. That was just that was the worst scene for me. That was even scarier than the Leatherface jump scare, man. That was horrible. I don't know. That whole scene's just really disturbing. There's something so sinister about the fact that they all know exactly what they're doing. They all just don't care.
Yeah. And
despite her pleading and screaming, and they don't care. They're just laughing at her and playing with her. And I don't know, there's something really realistic about the idea. I know like that doesn't happen in real life really, but the idea of someone like that in real life is so much scarier than like ghosts or aliens or whatever.
Yeah.
Because it could happen. So, I don't know. Yeah, that stuff ekes me out. But yeah, she does manage to escape again after Granddad can't get his hammer up.
Yeah.
He's too old. Too old
to hammer.
Too old to hammer. And she bails out a window again.
She loves doing that.
She does. That's twice in as many minutes. And makes it to the road. There's a friendly truck driver who just throws like, NFL playoff season proper Hail Mary, launches his hammer right at Leatherface.
Gets him square in the head.
And then just bounces. We don't see him again. He just bolts. And like, this is a truck driver. He's not a small guy. He's a pretty big built guy. But oh boy, does he run.
Yeah.
And of course, a convenient pickup truck happens to be driving along just as Sally gets to the road, and she climbs in and they drive off into the sunset with that iconic scene of Leatherface swinging around, swinging his chainsaw in the wind, and it ends. And I was so impressed that I still enjoyed it, to be honest. I think I loved it more than I did when I first watched it.
Good.
There's so many nice little scenes in it. And nice little touches that just make it so much more than just another slasher film. Like, I don't know, just like little things that I really like Edwin Neal's just commitment to the part, the sort of uniqueness of, Sally's the final girl for 30 minutes of the film. There's 30 minutes of them, 5 minutes of everyone getting killed. Well, no, that can't be right. 10, 15 minutes of
It's not
killed?
it's not a long film. It's not a long film at all.
It's about 80 minutes. Yeah. And then, like, the last 30 minutes of the film, it's just Sally. Everyone's dead. Everyone's gone. Like, that whole dinner table sequence is maybe 5-10 minutes, and it's just really disturbing. And the best part about it, there's virtually no gore in the film. It's billed as being this horrifying, gory slasher, and you remember it like that. Like, when you think back, you think, oh, it's really horrible, there's blood everywhere. But there's not. There's virtually none in the whole film. And I don't know. I was like, yeah, okay, this is a classic. I get it. I understand now. And I'm gonna let you say your piece because you're giving me a face.
I'm glad you're enjoying it, and this is your film, so you're more than entitled to talk about how much you like it. The issue that I actually have several issues.
Okay.
I think the main thing that I find really annoying about it is the pacing, because I feel like there are several times where they have a scene and they're like, this is what we're gonna do for like 5 minutes, and it just keeps going, and then they very quickly move on to something else. It's like they pick up a hitchhiker, and then the hitchhiker is weird in the back of the van, and that's 5 minutes. And then they kick the hitchhiker out, and then they go to an old house, and then they bum about the old house, and Franklin blows raspberries, and that's 5 minutes. And then there's like you say, they compile the whole interesting bit of the film that is Leatherface killing everybody into 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then they do like the dinner table scene is 5 minutes, and it's just 5 minutes of screaming and shouting and like nothing. It's unpleasant to watch, and nothing really happens during that 5 minutes. It's just every one of the scenes feels like it goes on for far too long.
I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I kind of do.
Yeah. I know that that's part of the point, is that it's supposed to be making you feel very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And the screaming and the shouting and the chainsaw noises that just keep going on and on, like, that's part of it. But also it was giving me a headache, like, because it's just constant noise and like nothing's happening. It's like they're running around in circles around the farmhouse with the constant screaming and the constant chainsaw noises for like 5 minutes.
The chase sequence is maybe a little bit long.
That's like the entire length of the sex scene from Don't Look Now.
It is, yeah. We could have had Sutherland cheeks.
We could have had Donald Sutherland's ass, and we didn't.
No, I don't know. I see what you mean, right? But for me, I don't know that it was necessarily a problem. I think we're kind of spoiled. I am looking at it with a little bit of a nostalgic lens. Like, we're spoiled today in that a lot of the good horror films, modern horror films, are very good at pacing.
Yeah.
And they're very good at like establishing plot and everything. Whereas back in the day, it wasn't really something they focused on for films, especially in horror films. Like, you could arguably say the same thing about like Halloween. You know, it's just a bunch of sequences tied together. With, you know, then they all last like X many minutes. So I don't know. I didn't really see that as a huge problem, because I think a lot of the individual sequences were so good and so enjoyable that I kind of just forgot about how long they were going on for or anything.
Fair enough. I mean, that was how I felt about Don't Look Now.
Well,
you disagreed with me.
That's fair. It's fair.
I think it's just, we have different tastes. But like, that was a problem for me. I think the film is really quite ugly.
Really?
I don't know if it was what I was watching a DVD of it rather than like a 4K or like, you know, like a stream would be higher quality or something. I don't know if it was maybe the quality of the video I was watching, but like it felt like grindhouse films are known, they're going to be like grainy, they're going to be like, it was just like, it was shot on, I don't think it was shot on like an expensive camera even for the time, so it's not like,
I mean, 70.
I don't know. I don't know.
There's no such thing as an expensive camera. You know what I mean? Like,
and I just feel like it's not. there's not any interesting cinematography. There's not any interesting like color design. There's not anything. It's just lots of very like bland gray, kind of like sepia brown shots.
Yeah, that's Texas.
That are just like
that's
shaky.
Just
I guess that's just what Texas looks like. And then, yeah, I've mentioned the acting. I think the acting is either the actors are giving absolutely nothing or they are going way too far in the other direction.
Yeah.
And it just feels hammy. The only person that I think gives a genuine good performance is Marilyn Burns playing Sally. I think she's pretty good. I think like right at the end, her like screaming and laughing as she's like going away in the back of this truck. Like that's good. Yeah.
And that's it. That's the only acting you like.
No, that's the only acting that I like. One thing that I do really like about the film, as you mentioned, the whole like it doesn't have an awful lot of gore. There's a lot of like implied gore.
Yeah.
And it does a really good job of making your brain kind of fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't show you anything. It just makes you think you've seen it.
Yeah.
And I really like it when films do that. And I think it does it really well, which is very commendable. And just like the setup for the film now is a bit of a cliche. Like the teenagers on a road trip and the like family of the like inbred cannibal hillbillies is like such a cliche, but it had never been done before.
That it's a cliche because of this film.
The reason that it's a cliche is because they did it so well. It was so influential. And like I'm always gonna like I have to give it credit for that.
Yeah.
I just don't enjoy watching the film. So yeah.
That's fair. I mean I think it's definitely the two films we've picked tonight are definitely very different tastes.
Very different.
Like very different in their in their themes and their how it's shown and everything. But no, I definitely I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I thought it was I disagree with you saying that there's no nice shots in it.
Yeah.
If I'm going to be honest, I think there's a lot of really nice shots. The shots of them, like even in the minivan going along the road, just this long stretch of empty road and the minivan going past. The scenes when they're walking up to the house, there's Pam. I think it's Pam. I'm going with Pam. Walking up to the house, and there's the shot from underneath with her walking up and the house in the background, kind of getting closer. I think it's gorgeous. I think it's amazing. So yeah. I love it. I think there's a lot of iconic imagery. I think there's a lot of horror to be taken away from it beyond just it's a man who kills teenagers with a chainsaw. Yeah. How disgusting. Like I think there's a lot more like nuance to this film without sounding like a complete pretentious knob. Like I think there is a lot more to it than just that. And I kind of appreciate it a lot more.
Yeah.
So how many stars?
I gave it 2 stars.
Okay.
Out of 5.
Okay.
I wasn't completely horrible. I didn't give it like half a star.
You didn't give it 1.5 like I did for
Don't Look Now. No, I think 1.5 stars for Don't Look Now is totally fair. Like I liked it a lot more than you did, but I don't think that's an unfair ranking. Okay. I know that I like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre a lot less than people do. This is probably my big controversial film opinion. Or horror film opinion. I
don't know.
Because a lot of people talk about it as like one of the best horror films of all time. Lots of people cite it as their favorite horror film of all time. That the scene with when the first time Leatherface appears and he goes out, like that's a very scary scene. I will give it that. That got number 1 on Shudder's 101 scariest horror movie moments.
Was that number 1?
That was number 1.
I watched it. It was a few months ago now.
Yeah.
I watched it, but yeah.
That was number 1. And I was like, I don't know if I would give that number 1. Like lots of people put it in those kind of places as like the most influential horror film, the best horror film, the scariest horror film. And like, I disagree.
Yeah. That's fair. Like,
it's not completely terrible. I just don't think it's particularly good either.
Okay. It's not to everyone's taste, definitely. There is a uniqueness to the film that's not to everyone's taste. No, and even as a horror film, it's not to everyone's taste in horror films. Yeah. So I totally appreciate that. I was far more generous. I gave it a 4. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Yeah, I think it's really good. It is lacking in places, like you say. Some of the acting's a bit naff in places. Some of the characters are just so disposable that you just don't really care at all.
We don't even remember.
I don't remember their names.
One of the 5 characters, one of 4 kills on screen that we see.
Yeah,
we didn't even remember it happening.
Genuinely, like I watched it the other night, and I just cannot.
Yeah,
I'm drawing a complete blank how he dies.
Mm-hmm. Actually, no, sorry. There are 5 kills. We forgot to mention the hitchhiker gets hit by a truck.
Oh, he does.
And explodes.
Oh, he explodes under the wheel. Yeah.
I like that scene.
That was pretty good.
Gets turned into a red smear on the front of a semi-truck.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot to love about it, and it's definitely easy to see why it's iconic. And I think even if you don't enjoy it, film, you can see why it is iconic.
Absolutely,
like,
yeah.
It's one of those films.
It's quintessential Grindhouse.
Yeah,
and that's not my taste, but I've got to respect it for that. I've got to respect how influential it is. Yeah.
Well, that's the end of our double bill for this evening. I don't know if you want to discuss the theme. Do you want to see who did it better?
Who did the theme of families better?
I think Don't Look Now. I'm not gonna lie. I picked Texas Chainsaw Massacre on a bit of a whim,
like
thinking that there is a family in it, therefore family theme.
Yeah, Texas Chainsaw doesn't really explore the theme of family all that much,
other than there is a family.
Other than they are a family. There's like an element of the bickering between the Sawyers, especially the oldest brother, kind of like yelling at Leatherface and yelling at the hitchhiker and telling them what to do and bossing them around, which is like, I suppose it's playing on this as like a grotesque caricature, like an evil inverted version of like the stereotypical family, which is pretty interesting.
The inverted American dream.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
whereas something like Don't Look Now is it exploring like how much parents care for their children, and like exploring the idea of like grieving the loss of a child and the effect that can have on the relationship between a married couple, and like there's lots of the themes that they're exploring within family is totally different. So I don't know if it's necessarily comparable. I don't think either of them really do that good of a job.
Maybe not actually
exploring families. Like Don't Look Now, it's more about them as a couple than like the family unit.
Yeah.
It's not even that much about like how they feel as parents. It's more about, I guess it's more about Donald Sutherland by himself going through grief and having a weird time and not knowing what's going on.
Donnie Sutherland and his bare ass cheeks.
Yeah, big Donnie Sutherland.
But that's fine because it's our show and we can make the themes to be whatever we want them to be.
Can. So. Speaking of which, next week is very special. It is very special.
I don't know if any of you happen to be fans of a young filmmaker by the name of John Carpenter, but back in 1980, he made this little film called The Fog that just so happens to take place on April 21st, which happens to be next Friday. Therefore, we will be doing, instead of our regular themed week, our movies will be 1980 John Carpenter's The Fog, and
2005, not John Carpenter's The Fog. The infamously bad remake.
Yes.
I'm really excited to watch it.
I kind of want to watch it again. I like
Have you seen it before?
I've watched it before a long time ago. Yeah. Like the original Fog, I know inside out. I love that film. Yeah. Absolutely amazing. Sorry, spoilers for next week.
Oh yeah, no, it's an incredible film. We've both talked already several times about how much we love it, and we're only on episode 2.
I know whereas 2005 one, as you say, infamously bad, infamously atrocious remake, atrocious film in general. It's got Superman in it.
Yeah.
Even he can't save the film. So yeah, I'm excited to compare the two side by side.
Very
and see how
excited.
That goes.
Yeah, because I've not seen the remake.
Yeah,
excited.
That'll be an experience for you.
And I love Selma Blair. I'm really interested to see how she stands up because she's Adrienne Barbeau.
Yeah,
and it's like how we're going to pit these two queens against each other, and I know who's going to come out on top.
Yeah,
but I hate to see it happen to Selma. I gotta be honest.
Can't beat Adrienne Barbeau.
You can't. You really can't.
No. Well, with that, we bid you a good night. We hope you've enjoyed the podcast. We hope you've enjoyed the movies. And we hope we will see you next week.